some of what we dug on was 1980s, grading style.
Yeah, and we're live.
Okay.
I know it's a couple
live on
minutes
Facebook.
early. Are you guys okay with starting early?
Really?
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for coming, everyone. All members are here in person tonight. Is there approval of the agenda or any revisions?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Hoag to approve the agenda. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Bailey. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with all members voting yes. Comments from visitors. We invite anyone who would like to address the board. This is the opportunity to do that. We are requesting to try to keep that within about a 5-minute time frame. If the board is not able to answer your questions, we will certainly be able to get back to you. Is there anyone who would like to address the board?
I'm just here to find out some details on the return to school, but I'm gonna assume that's in your agenda.
It is on our agenda, yeah. Is there anything that you'd like to specifically address?
Can I address it at that time? So if you've already covered it, there's no point.
This is the time to address it, so,
A couple of the questions that had come up.
come forward. And I'm not very good with the masks, so if
Me
you can
either.
identify who you are.
Teresa Johnson.
Hi.
Couple of the questions, I guess, was there's, I come from not within the school district, so there's the busing questions that I wasn't able to answer because I gotta call somebody back. But one of the questions that was asked of me to ask was, if we return the kids to school in person, what is the protocol and what happens if someone comes down with a positive case? Do we have anything?
I think that will be addressed.
Yeah. You want me to get into it now or wait till you?
No, I think if we wanna just take like maybe all your questions and then we'll be sure to address them as we go, if that works.
That's one of the biggest ones, and then of course the immunization issue, I don't think that's settled at this point as far as what the mandate will be. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, well, there is no immunization at this point.
Right.
So I don't know if there's.
So we've not done any scenarios as to if that becomes available, what's gonna be mandated, what's not. So nothing will come of that until,
That still could be 2 years away.
right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Currently, I think the current immunization recommendation from MDE, and I believe what we follow is if it's required by the state,
Yep.
then it's required here, but unless it's not required by the state, then
Right.
it's not required here, so.
And there's been nobody knows anything more than that at the moment, at least, same thing.
Unfortunately, no.
So I think at that point I'll just wait, cause that was one of the biggest issues was what will the protocol be should you come up with a positive case while we're here in school, so.
Okay, yeah, that's a great question.
Okay, so I'll just wait then, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board? Anyone else? Seeing none, we will move on. Scheduled presentations. Mr. White, you are on the agenda to talk about coaches' evaluations, the procedure and process.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for your time. I hope you guys all had an opportunity to review the documents and information that. The goal of this procedures and document that we have is to have steps in place when it comes to vacancy and the steps of when we are interviewing, and then of course the hiring process. Also, we want to provide an evaluation procedure to have in place through walkthroughs. I think the one thing we also want to do is get to have a self-assessment for our coaches, including the AD, to have a measurement tool to show professional growth as they are working through ACAN. And I am here if you have any questions or concerns. Here it is.
So is this a brand new form or was this here before?
This is a brand new form.
So none of this stuff was part of it before, or there was no document before?
Like the step and procedures, nothing I could see.
I think it sounds like there was just a lot of, probably past practice, but
Mhm.
things depending on the AD may have been documented more than others. And so this was discussed at a committee meeting as well
Yes.
and was reviewed with administration, and so.
Did you do any research with other districts, for example, that made
Yeah.
this process in place?
Yes, I can share this. Majority of the information here is actually through my master's program that when I got at Ohio University. So I had the opportunity to do research with other ADs and other programs from all over the states, such as Ohio, Kansas, Minnesota as well. I do also want to mention, and I did have an opportunity with Mr. Krellis and Mr. Stifter to go over this, and I believe we review this as well through 2 policy committee meetings as well.
What do you hope to accomplish by this?
I hope to provide a tool as a way that we can have a communication with our coaches and continue on a yearly basis to focus on professional growth. Not just for the program itself, but also as a coach. Anytime we get in new coaches, I think it's always important. There's always room for improvement, including myself, and I believe this is a tool that we can use to accomplish that.
Great. I assume this could probably be an evolving document and plan as well.
Yes.
Chances are you're gonna come across good ideas with, every opportunity you get to mix with professionals in your field and continue improving the process. I'm inspired by the fact that we're gonna finally have something established, and I think it'll add to a lot of accountability and, to your point, professional growth opportunity for our coaches and the support staff that make up their teams.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, I think you could go to every district and there's a different type of evaluation process that they use, and some are better, some are good, and there's always room for improvement. But I feel this would be something we can use for the next couple of years in that. So.
And the coaches all have copies of this and see it?
Yes, it's in our handbook.
So I see it's got, as of now, Mr. Krellis has to sign off on this too.
Yeah.
They're gonna be part of the interviews and all that?
Mr.
or just-
Krellis?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
He's been part of our interviews as well when it came to the head coach positions.
Any other questions for Mr. White? Okay, thank you for putting it together. We look forward to implementing it and going forward.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Having no old business on the agenda, we will move into the new business. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved, nobody's got anything to take on?
Motion by Mr. Haskamp to approve the consent agenda. Mr. Shute?
A question, 8G, is that part of the consent agenda? It's our, vote,
No. That is gonna go.
Consent agenda goes down to 8B.
Down to 8B?
No, I think it's B.
8E probably, down to AD, approve the 2020-2021 annual application for pricing.
Right.
Down to AD.
down to, anyway, I was thinking AG was probably gonna be something that we would be discussing.
Yep, it should be.
That's probably a good indicator, is to maybe indicate on the agenda what's included
Yeah.
in the consent. That's,
I was just, they're all number 8.
Yeah.
yeah.
We probably should have jumped to number 9 there and moved
Through
everything
D?
Yep.
through 8 to D.
8D as
Yeah,
a
it's not
dog?
broken out.
Yes.
Okay.
Still got that.
So that might be helpful to, like, on the, after the approved consent agenda items as follows, maybe just indicate
Why couldn't that change, that should change to 9 then or something?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that,
I
that's a
don't
good
make
idea.
excuses, but the new board book.
It's the new
Program
board
has
book,
been
but yeah, I'll see
a
what I can
learning
do on
curve.
that.
Okay,
So-
yeah, then that's a good question.
To me, I don't think it's user friendly.
Yeah.
Does that change your motion, Mr. Haskamp?
It does not.
Okay, motion to approve the consent agenda, is there a second? Second by Mr. Bailey, any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with all members voting yes. Okay, now we are down to 8.
Me.
8E, the online meal application and pricing.
Approve the 2020-21 online meal application with pricing. Mr. Stifter, do you wanna talk about that?
Well, I'm gonna, Heather, if you're ready, what we have is the online, or the free meal program, the benefits program for meals. The application process went online, I think just last year. We didn't jump in on it. This year Heather's done the work to, so families can, still do a paper copy, but they can do the, apply for those benefits online and it's not the paper exchange or, parents and families can just do that. And then, some of the pricing, and Heather, maybe get into this, a little bit more meal pricing, had to go up to stay pace with the recommendations of the food service programs, so we stay in compliance with their numbers. Heather, I don't know if you wanna expound on that, maybe I took your thunder.
Yeah, so the online meal application, we're gonna finish setting it up tomorrow, so we should be done with that if it's approved tonight, and then we've already gotten MDE's approval on that. So that'll just make it easier for families to be able to do it, and not have the paper, and hopefully we'll get more back, because as you know, the free and reduced numbers play into the compensatory revenue, and our compensatory revenue was down this year compared to last year. So hopefully, and with the state of everything, COVID, people, there might be a lot more eligible than there were in the past. So we're hoping that that'll help bring in as many as we can get and help those families out.
Yeah, so families really are encouraged to apply, because the more that we have that meet that qualifications, the more money the district can access, right?
Exactly.
And do you have any idea what % of families, in our district qualify for free or reduced?
42% was last year's numbers.
Okay, so,
We anticipate that going up this year,
okay.
so, yeah, we'll see. And then, as far as the prices, so each year we are required to look at our paid meal prices, to make sure that we're getting enough money, to pay for those paid meals, so that the federal and state funds that we get aren't subsidizing the paid meals. So as we went through that process this year, we are, the recommendation is we're actually required to increase that, but the maximum we can increase it by is 10 cents for lunch. So that's our recommendation, is increasing the lunches by 10 cents and then the breakfast by 5 cents. So for elementary, the breakfast is going from $1.45 to $1.50, the elementary lunch $2.50 to $2.60, and then the high school $1.55 for breakfast to $1.60, and then high school lunch from $2.75 to $2.85.
Mr. Haskamp?
So unless I heard something wrong there, we get the federal funding in that, but you say we have to raise the ones that do pay so they can subsidize the federal funding?
No, so that they aren't so that the federal funding isn't subsidizing the paid. The federal funding needs to go towards the free and reduced and not pay for the paid lunches. The paid lunches need to be paid from another source other than the federal funds that we get.
It's just the opposite of that. They believe if our meal prices aren't set at a certain limit for our paid meals, they feel the federal food program that should just be for our free meals is subsidizing the rest of our program.
Right. So how much money is in that budget? Or in that fund?
The food service fund?
Yeah. There excess or?
Yeah, there is excess at this point, but
How much?
who knows what's gonna happen. Gosh, what is it, like I wanna say 25,000 maybe
25.
sitting there,
Okay.
yeah. Yep, and that might change significantly after this past year and depending on what happens this year. You know, we still were having to pay all those bills and pay all those employees, and not bringing in that revenue, so.
Did that jump or decline? I mean, what was the impact of this year?
Well, the expenditures were higher, or the same probably,
Yeah.
but the revenues we weren't getting in, so that was much less.
Is that 25,000 kind of a standard average of what exists in that account on a year-to-year
That-
basis, or?
No, that's what we had at the end of last fiscal year, and the books aren't closed yet for this year, so I'm not sure where we ended up this year yet.
Okay.
There've been over 100,000 in that
Has there?
account before, yeah. But then we bought a bunch of equipment for the
For the food service.
lunchroom and
Cafeterias.
Yeah, it used to be that the state didn't want you to have too much in there, and you had to spend that down. They don't have those restrictions as much anymore.
That's what we had to spend it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, I would expect when the actual numbers come in, I mean, I would think part of the food service costs would be the delivery of those meals. And last spring, when we were driving around the school buses, et cetera, to deliver the meals, I would say that would be a very expensive, meal cost. You know, I mean, if we include, I mean, really, if we're delivering the meals, part of the food cost, part of the food service cost.
You're saying, John, that should be taken from transportation to
I'm saying the transportation should be paid by food service
okay,
for being the delivery,
gotcha, yep,
mode for the food.
appreciate it, yep.
That make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is that
And-
being considered, or?
It
I
can
would
be.
assume it would be part of it, but I don't know if it is or not. Go ahead, Joe.
No, that's all, I'm just gonna.
One of the things, you know, that's still up in the air is the different funding. We just got, word last week that there's, potentially more funding coming our way, from the state level for COVID dollars for those types of things. So hopefully those funds will cover some of those costs. That's kind of what it's meant for, so.
I guess I was thinking of a different question, and then I just kind of picked up and ran with this one. Backing up a little ways, you mentioned 42% of our students are free and reduced lunches. Has anybody done any, just for curiosity, comparisons, how that compares with, you know, we're always comparing Aiken to others for costs and so forth. How does our percentage of free and reduced lunches compare to other schools across the area or beyond? Has anybody looked at that?
I think Brainerd's over 50%.
Yeah, it is. I think that's right.
Yeah, I think we're in the ballpark, maybe on the, even on the lower side, just because we've had challenges getting people to fill out
Yeah.
paperwork and get it back, so that's why the online application will help it.
Wouldn't all places have the same challenge though?
Yeah, you're right, I don't know what our reasons
I
are.
would
Ours seem to
assume-
be, in the area seem to be, show up as on the lower side, maybe not, you know, as far as percentages.
Okay, well, thank you, I was just curious.
I know IL is similar, around the 45-ish mark. Onamia was much higher. Those are two districts that I know, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion approved.
Motion by Mr. Hoag to
Second.
approve the online meal application with the pricing, correct?
Yep.
Second by Mr. Jansen. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with all members voting yes. Okay, next is the designation of Mr. Stifter as the identified official with authority. Are you from Iowa now?
Yeah, what a nice title, Identified Official Authority. Basically, every year, I thought I just had to do it last year, but every year I have to have the board approve me as a person that goes into MDE and changes or approves everybody else who has. So I approve Heather, I approve Paul, Andy, anybody our title people, anybody that has to put any data into MDE, they make a request, and then the MDE requested me to approve them, and then I approve them so that they can get in and do the work they need to do. Right now, I can't approve anybody because I didn't have the board resolution updated in June or July. I thought once I was in, I was good, but I gotta have the board.
I make a motion.
All right.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Haskamp to designate Mr. Stifter as the Iowa to comply with MNIT for MDE. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Shute. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with all members voting yes.
Thank you.
Okay,
We
next
just don't want you sitting around. do we?
Yeah.
is the resolution calling for an election approving a capital project levy authorization. The deadline to submit is August 21st.
So there's a resolution, and working with Ellers, and then the law firm they worked with is Knudsen Flynn, put together a resolution to call for this capital projects levy. Pretty standard resolution is my understanding. And then the ballot is also a part of that, as will appear in November. Again, pretty standard wording. Ellers and Knudsen Flynn, those two organizations, is a big part of what they do. So I have to have a resolution approved, and then we submit it, and we have to do that by the 21st. So we're right down nip and tuck. I had to do the review and comment. Heather and I worked on that, submitted it. I got an email saying that it has been approved, and they'll forward it on to MDE, and I should have a letter from MDE saying that our project, our scope of our capital projects levy will be approved by MDE. So that's can sometimes be a catch, so we're through that. We've gotten through that step of the process, so it's just a matter of getting an official letter from MDE saying they would approve us running the capital projects levy election.
So at this point, for clarity, Dan.
Yep.
Mr. Stifter, this has basically been submitted and approved before we as a board.
No, this hasn't been. You have to, what has been approved, I shared the review and comments with the board, I think at the work session at 2 weeks ago. And then that's what was submitted. And we had to, and then, so I needed to have that approved by the, that doesn't need to be approved by the board, the review and comments. That has to be approved by MDE. And then we get this, so I resubmit that review and comment letter from MDE and this to continue the process.
So that process creates an opportunity for us to bring this question to the voters.
Okay. Maybe I missed the timing here on this. There's some wordage here that I really think needed to be addressed. And if it's already past that, it's history.
This resolution is being approved, would be approved by the board. I don't know, so it hasn't been approved yet. This is what Ellers and I worked on as far as what our wording, what's good wording based on what other ballots have, or what other projects have and ballots have. So
I don't know if this is able to be discussed or not, and it needs to be after we have a motion on the floor. I understand that. If it's a discussion, can we? Okay.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Haskamp. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Hoag. Discussion?
Okay. Where I'm at on this right now, as part of the transportation committee, we've been throwing around ideas of exploring possibly having our transportation being contracted, exploring the economics and feasibility of transportation being contracted. And in turn, if this locks us into buying a bus, or half a bus rather, the dollars that was originally talked about in this is a half a bus a year.
right.
And we've traditionally been buying 2 to 3 buses a year. Haven't bought any new for a number of years, so we're behind the ball. And what the conversation that I had earlier that I'm bringing forward is that, and maybe this is broad enough statement to allow this, but we'd like to not have our hands tied to have to buy a bus. We'd like to be able to apply it towards transportation where we need it type situation, or maybe other capital investments, and we can use other monies to do what we have to do with transportation.
Yeah,
I just don't wanna have our hands
I
tied.
think it's pretty vague, don't you read?
Is
through
it
the
vague
ballot
enough
thing?
that we have some flexibility? That's my question.
And we went to, with that, we had, that had come up earlier, that's what's replacement of school buses and or school-related school-related transportation vehicles. We can't, if we go into a lease agreement, we can't use capital
Right,
project
we talked about
dollars for
that.
that.
I asked the question at the last meeting.
And so what this does, if we are buying buses, having the funding, it would make a possibility of more money in our general fund available to, let's say we keep our buses and we have to buy a bus every year. Well, this gives us basically half a bus every year, and then we would have possibly more money available in our general fund to fund the other half of the bus, because we're pulling in revenue for technology. But I get what you're
In the
saying.
what if scenario that we did an alternative to owning the bus fleet. Now, is that half a bus worth of dollars so tightly earmarked to purchasing a bus that we no longer need? That's why I was hoping the wordage could be vague enough that it would allow, and I think it might be, that we would be able, it might allow for us to apply it towards special ed transportation or something like that.
And that's the idea.
And I'm hoping that it would have the flexibility there, or and other, maybe we could say something about, and other things such as, that other things like buses and transportation related things. Something that would be a little more broad, so our hands weren't tied if by chance we did make this move. We're still gathering information so we can submit information to get a discussion about it.
And I had that discussion with others, and I feel like they're gonna tell me this is about as broad as they can go with that, but I can follow up with Jody tomorrow. The only problem is
Could we put something else in there than buses and then have the general fund fund the buses entirely? Thus in turn, like you just said, the flexibility of
There's
using
enough-
other monies to here or there.
There's enough expenditures and cost in technology to use that entire 500,000, where it would free up money
Unless
in the
it's-
general fund, like you're saying.
Unless it's earmarked
Too far.
for bus.
But it doesn't say
But it's
just
not,
buses.
it can all
It's
be
got
spent on
everything.
technology.
If it's all inclusive dollars that will include all of these things, that's fine. I haven't read it enough times to interpret it well enough.
I would say it includes everything, so, I mean, if you
We
wanted
have
to
the
spend
flexibility is
all of
what
it
you're
on
doing.
technology
Yeah.
and take the buses out of the general fund, that's
Or
what
vice
you would do.
versa.
Or vice versa.
Okay. If it's as Denny just stated, I'm fine with it.
I see it that way.
yeah.
That's where I'm making.
That's the way it was
under
written,
that
was to do
assumption.
that. When I had to submit review and comment stuff, I had to budget out, and there I did half, the $450 and then the half, or $50,000 for buses, but that was just a projection that is needed. My understanding is that it has to stay within, and this capital projects levy will have to stay spent on technology and or buses or any combination of that. And they recommended leaving some in transportation, because even if we lease or we go to some type of system like that, we're still gonna have school home and fleet that we wanna be able to maintain. I don't know if that'll come to $50,000 a year, but,
If we continue doing the special ed or some of those
Right.
things,
Yeah.
it surely would cover more than 50. It'll sure cost more than
Yeah.
50 grand, so.
all right.
Any
Yeah,
other
thank you.
discussion? Any other questions? Any other discussion? All those in favor of approving the resolution calling for an election, approving a capital project levy authorization signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with all members voting yes. Approve the credit card fee of $3 and $1 e-check fee per transaction for online payment system. I'm super excited to see that we have the option to do online payments.
Yeah, we've been working on, this will be a system run through our, campus portal, and Heather and Sherry and a couple of other, staff members have done the legwork on this. I'm gonna let Heather share what we need to know about it, so.
Yep, this has been a work in progress for a very long time as I go through the notes. But yeah, we're excited to get this up and running. We've been working with ARC, the people there, because they're in charge of the Infinite Campus, which is which is where the payments will be run through, obviously. And typically, they said districts are usually charging about a $3 fee for credit card charges, so that's what we're recommending, and then a $1 fee for the e-check. And the e-check would be like a EFT or electronic funds transfer from the parents' or customer's account directly to the school's account. So that would be the difference there. So that's our recommendation, and we're hoping to get this up and running ASAP. I think we're pretty much ready after the fees but the fees do have to be approved. That is in Minnesota statutes that the board approved that, so.
Well, if I got a $30 bill or thing for the school, I wanna pay $30, it's gonna cost me 10% of that to
$3.
do it online.
Yeah.
Where does that money go?
That goes to the district to pay for the fees that we're paying.
That's what I was
Is there a
wondering,
way to set it like as a a minimum threshold, so, instead of if I have 3 children and I'm doing 3 student, activity fees, is there a way to have like a minimum threshold before that fee would kick in?
No, it's either you can pick a percentage, or you can pick a set amount like $3. But no, there's not
What's the percentage?
as far as a limit. What's that?
What's the percentage?
You could charge
You go that way.
whatever you want. You could charge 3%.
Well, what are we being
what are we
charged?
being charged?
We're being charged 3.5% plus the plus 35 cents for each transaction. And we're also
So we're actually losing money. If somebody buys lunch, $30, brings the lunch coming up to do, or prepays it, we're actually losing money at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on the transaction amount, obviously, but I don't know, somewhere along the line, they said that they thought that $3 is the amount that, hopefully a more break-even amount is what ARC is telling me.
Is there a frequency when parents pay these things? Typically, is it once a month? Do they prepay a half a year at a time? I mean,
For lunch specifically,
or whatever. I mean,
well, fees, like sports fees, they pay, at the season usually, like in the fall, they'll pay for those sports fees, and then the spring, they'll pay for those sports fees, and.
I don't think there's a cap on how much money you put in your lunch account if you wanna
if you want to pay it for a
pay
long
a
period of
chunk
time.
of it, so it's
Right.
for 3 months or whatever.
It's kind of the same thing as like restaurants charging you 4% if you use your credit card. So they charge that 4% fee to use your
Right.
credit card. So it's the same
Right,
thing.
but so that you're saying you're charging 3.5% to the district. Did you say that?
Yep,
It's not clear.
3.5% plus 35 cents per
Plus the
transaction.
35 cents.
Transaction.
And we're asking them to pay $3 per transaction.
Mhm.
Okay.
They're charging 35 cents per transaction.
I'm just trying to think of a way we don't have to assess any additional fees to district patrons if we don't have to. If we're being
Yeah.
charged for it, then it's a expectation that we have to pass it on
Correct.
at
And
some
the
level.
e-check fee was for them paying us? Or what's that, what's that for?
The e-check is when they, basically be like writing a check, so it comes directly from their account, they set up their banking information, and then it gets direct deposited into our account.
Rather than a credit card?
Correct,
Okay.
yep.
Mind making that motion?
So a $75 transaction is where above the threshold where we're actually losing money, below that, the $3 fee is probably covering.
I would think that most transactions are probably more than $75, right?
100,
I
like
mean,
a
when I
year.
come in to pay lunch fees, I pay for the entire year. So this
Yeah.
$3 is not anywhere near the $1,000 that I'm dropping off, right? And then everybody else has to pick that up. So I think it would almost be better if it was a percent, honestly.
Be more fair. That's what you're saying?
Yes.
On the other side of
Or-
that,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, on the other side of that point, various places you go, it's a flat fee plus a percent. A lot of times it's a flat fee plus a percent. So it's your $2, $3, whatever, plus a percentage. And if we're talking about a flat fee and not a percentage, there is a crossover point. I'm not real excited about seeing somebody have to pay $3 just every time they do it, or if they,
But that's their choice.
Right,
their
you still
choice
have
is
to
to
check.
do
They
it
can
either
send- they
credit
can send
card
us a
or e-check.
Or give us a check, right?
Give us a
Right.
personal
right.
check or cash, it's not gonna cost you, right?
Right.
So,
So it's a convenience fee.
Convenience.
I think
it's kind of
oftentimes
customary across
what
the
schools do is, like for activities fees, I know in Piers when I was there, we started the outline payments and we upped our fee $5 to cover it. And then that was just, it wasn't it was already built into the activity fee, so you weren't getting the additional $3, the school just ate it in that case. But we had our activity fees set, and that information's out, we got kids participating, so that's the one reason, let's just go with the $3, it's still, you use that logic, well, there's $2 cheaper than what schools have done that, some schools have done that way.
So what, just out of curiosity, I should stay down and see. So what is the most common, do most people today pay with credit card? Do most people pay with what? I mean, is this something that is it a big issue for us? Or is it, I'm trying to get a pulse on what the small town does.
It's purely a convenience, why are we doing this, correct?
It's a convenient thing, but there's a lot of parents that come in and say, why can't we pay with credit card?
Exactly.
That's where we
Exactly.
see a lot of it.
Prior to
That's
COVID,
your athletic fees, that's your lunch fees, the whole 9 yards. And I think.
So there is a high number of people that actually use the
It's a
credit card.
combination issue.
Okay.
Or that will.
prior to the pandemic, that was probably the big #1 question that was asked last year is, how come we can't pay online, or when can we pay online, or we're gonna, so that
Okay.
might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but maybe not, but there's a lot of
Okay.
interest in
Sure.
having something set up there.
I think that younger generation, I shouldn't say that, they're used to that stuff. You and me, John, we ready to check out or give cash, but the new generation coming up is more.
I'm an old man, I pay for everything with a credit card.
So the guys in between, you farmers deal. But I think it's just people are starting to use it more. It comes on the bank.
I get credit on my credit card every year, and I get a big check back in February because I use my credit card.
You pay it off, but there's
I
probably
pay
a
it
lot
off
of
every month,
pay it
yeah.
off.
So all of my on-road work that I do, everything is credit card. You pay at the pump, you pay this and you pay that. It's common. Even for us tween people, Kevin.
So is there a motion?
So moved.
And what is the motion? To approve the credit card fee of $3 and $1 e-check fee per transaction? Okay, motion by Mr. Jansen, who was the second?
It doesn't matter.
John.
Second by Mr. Shute, any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I,
Any opposed? Motion carries with all members voting yes. Thank you. Thank you for getting that, it will be very convenient. Okay, next is approve the purchase of the service agreement for the transportation of children and youth in foster care placement.
Last year, at some point, the county contacted me and said we didn't have a agreement in place with the county, other county schools did. So I couldn't find a
I've never
previous-
seen
What's
this.
that?
I've never seen this.
Yeah, we're supposed to have one approved every year by the board, and the county couldn't find one that Aiken had done ever. They had Hill City and they had McGregor, but they never had one from Aiken, so basically working with the county, they gave us a year, the state gave us a year to come up with a deal, and that year was July 1st, so here I am. Asking, it's just an agreement that if students placed in foster care will work with the county. If they're outside school district, we'll work with the county and share the cost to transport that foster child to our school should the placement be deemed. That's the correct placement, or the student should continue here.
Make a motion to approve.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Ryan, second by Mr. Bailey, any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with all members voting yes. Consider and approve the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee resolution.
Wait.
You missed one.
Where's that at?
Where did we go? You jumped.
Oh, that was taken off. That has been removed.
Okay.
Yep.
So then are we down
8J.
to
Approve Laura.
Laura.
approve Laura Parkin
Parkin.
Community
That's just,
Education Coordinator contract?
Yep.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second that one too.
Motion by Mr. Ryan, second by Mr. Bailey, any discussion? Mr. Stifter, did you wanna say anything?
Oh, just the annual contract, it's, just to get Laura in the mix.
Okay.
Enter in the mix.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with all members voting yes. Approve the Activities Department Handbook.
Question, backing up just for clarity, is community ed coordinator, does that fall into the same category as being able to be prorated like coaches, because it could fluctuate on participation or not?
It
Is
is
that,
not.
it's a different category?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
That's okay. Approve the Activities Department Handbook.
What's it look like?
Good question.
We'll have to,
Is it not on there?
no, it's not on there.
I thought I was the only one that couldn't open some of these things.
All right.
Wasn't on
Is it the
there.
same one we had earlier?
Mhm.
Or is
Yeah,
it-
it's on there from when Alex presented it, it's not on there. So
Okay.
I don't know if we wanna go, if you,
I think I've seen it, but I can't remember.
oh, no, that's not. Looks like we're gonna have to come back to the activities handbook, sorry, Alex. We'll get it on there for the next meeting.
If you go to quick view on your,
Yeah, you got
it's
it.
on there.
I can pull it up.
Oh,
It's not attached to mine.
no, go back.
Mine either.
Is it not, before the thing being presented?
Is there any major changes?
Other than just the one you presented on, right here. So it's,
This is the Rippleside handbook.
Ripple
That's the next thing.
That's the
Yeah, that's the next thing down.
Yeah, this is the
Not on-
handbook, not the,
so this is the activities, what's included on there is activities, procedures for hiring coaches, the ACAN, AD evaluation, and then the coach advisor self-assessment,
Yeah,
correct?
the activities handbook's different, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a different one, yes.
We'll have to come back.
that just describes our sports, or what is it?
It's a reflection of based on our schools and then also athletic activities procedures as well, so.
So anything that needs to be approved tonight?
No, I don't. think
No,
so.
I mean, we can do it on in September.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
all right, next is the elementary handbook.
You got one on there.
Any different than that, Andy?
No, there's just kind of cleaned up some language, but there's gonna be some stuff in addition to COVID, so I believe, some changes that were in there. Cassie put some asterisks next to the things that are kind of changing with COVID, we're gonna throw like an addendum and we're gonna just have it available for families, but policy-wise, none of that. There's no changes that way. It'll just be some additional information, pertaining to COVID, really.
And then is that published on the website? Is that eventually where it lands? Is the
Yeah,
school
and we'll
website?
have it, we'll make sure it's on the Ripple side, the district, and then probably on the Ripple side tab, just have it on the Ripple side website.
Okay.
Andy, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I see some of these asterisks here, and there's been
9 of them.
and there's been some comments about a list of specialist things that's twice the size or 3 times of a normal class list.
Yep.
And never in the past have we required students to bring specialist items to school, and there's a lot of heartburn over that in the community with parents. I've heard that 25 times. And so I just want to get some clarification on that.
Yep, and so we had our regular class list, that's pretty standard.
Mhm.
Just due to COVID and the potential transition with our specialists, cleaning up materials and supplies, things like that, we're gonna encourage that if students can bring materials with them to specialists this year, it's really due to COVID.
My question would be then, instead of asking them to buy a whole bunch of extra, couldn't we have a specialist come to classroom where they already have their normal things in their desk, crayons and so on, and those types of things versus, I mean, and a lot of these things are pretty name brand, Crayola colored pencil set, 24 colors. I mean, there's some things that I would be concerned with half of our students not even be able to afford.
Sure, and I've heard the concerns as well. All I'm really doing is encouraging families to do what they can. We'll do what we can when they come, and if they don't have them, we'll understand. You know, we're not going to punish families or kids for not having those. We're trying to just shift some of the responsibility back to families, and I've gotten a lot of phone calls on it as well, trying to address it accordingly.
Are they looking for clarity, Andy, or
You know, it was a late addition,
Okay.
because there's been some changing in the list, and this was a later addition, and so it some people were saying things are hard to find because of the the specifics of the items on the list. It is different, and it's a change, and it was meant to be an addition, and it's unfortunately it's just due to the kind of circumstances that we're in.
And part of it's come back some budget cutting, reductions in supply budgets for both buildings. There's gonna be some additional parent requests anyway, due to that, for that purpose or for that reason.
And Jeremy, going back to having the specialists go to classrooms, I think at some point in the year we're gonna get to that. To start the year being we're in person, I felt like if we can keep the kids coming, it's a nice break for the kids too, to get out of their rooms.
I'm
And just for their programming as well, right?
Yeah,
If we
I'm
can,
with you 100% there. I'm just saying, like, to
Yep.
cut costs.
yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's a tough conversation piece, I mean, we know it's tight for families, it's tight for the school right now, and it's just, I tell them we just try and do what we can do, and if you can even get a few things on there, great, it'll help.
Were the meal prices that were just approved tonight then included in this addition? No. The 145. So
Have to check on that, off the top of my head, I'm not sure.
So I think that the new prices will have to be incorporated before it gets published,
Sure.
because they're the old prices in there, of course.
Mary, you taking notes on that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other discussion? I can't remember if there's been a motion or not.
I don't believe there has. So
Not yet.
Motion by Mr. Jansen, second.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Bailey. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? All those in favor of approving the elementary handbook signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with all members voting yes. Okay, next is the 2020 high school student parent handbook.
Okay, we added the same thing, some of the expectations for all students. One thing that we did work on a little bit was the academics match what's in policy 620 as far as weighted grades did not match what was in our handbook, did not match what was in campus. We wanted to make sure all that matched up the way it was supposed to be so that those weighted grades were correct in every way. So we did make that change. Another thing that if you look through there, the mask requirements were put into the dress code areas, and you know, that's one of those things that I know Andy and we've talked a lot about this with Mr. Stifter. You know, we're gonna try and maintain and keep our buildings open as long as we possibly can, but should it be a discipline issue, it should not. So there's some things that we did address with that. One thing that we did work on very hard and diligently the last couple days was the table of contents. Did not match up to some of the page numbers, and I know Don worked on that very hard today and did get things to match up. So that's been addressed. Another thing, all the computer forms are at the back of the student handbook, where instead of throwing those into policies, we can make checks and balances with that at the back side of the student handbook so everybody knows where they are. Okay, any other questions with that? A couple other things I'd like to bring up. Right now, our schedule for the high school, what I'd like to do with the schedule, part of it, I want to change our daily schedule. Instead of an 8-period day, I'm going to go down to 7 for a couple of reasons. Number one, I can reduce the passing time in between classes by one time per day, which, you know, with the COVID issues, we don't want the kids in the hall, so we're going to reduce it by one passing time per day. We're going to add so many minutes, like it's like 4 minutes per class period into all the academic sections for 2 reasons. To give those teachers a little extra time if we go to a hybrid model. It'll also give all the staff a couple extra minutes for the sterilization and sanitation of each class period in between the kids coming in and out. I feel that's critical. We got to do it right. We got to make sure that everybody stays safe at that point. Another thing that is kind of looking at 7th grade orientation will be August 26th. We're going to run it from 5 to 8. We're going to run 3 different groups in. 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8. I'll start off with the introductions. We'll have Mr. Russo be in there with computer technology stuff so we can explain that to all those parents again. And then we'll move through those kids going to 2nd floor so they can find their lockers, their first hour classrooms, or classrooms in general on their schedule. They can filter down the math hall toward the tech office, and then they'll pick their computers up as they go around the block. It ought to work very efficiently. We figure there'll be a group of 30 kids at a time with their parents, and we should be able to push those kids through there in an hour's time. I think it's key that they come, they can see. My plan is that after things settle down a little bit, if they ever settle down, I'm going to bring those parents back in, and we want to do a presentation with the parents. I'd like to talk with the parents. I'd like to do a Canvas presentation so that they understand exactly how our LMS system works in the high school and where to go to find all their kids' homework and materials. So that I feel that's key, and we'll open that door as the year settles in. Back to school letters. After tonight's meeting, I will send out a back to school letter tomorrow, and that means all students and staff or parents will get a letter starting tomorrow so that we can see how the school year is going to start out. You know, it's really hard for us to say, oh, we're coming back to school in full. Well, what if something happens in the next 2 weeks and we're not? So we got to be careful how we word that and how things are going. And I'd like to get that sent out as soon as possible so that we can eliminate some of the questions. And Mr. Stifter, Mr. Dockin, and I have all put together kind of mine's called Aiken High School Back to School Plan and Frequently Asked Questions. That will also go out with our letters tomorrow so that parents, like scenario 1, hybrid remote learning, what it is, breakfast and lunch. Will students be required to wear masks or not? And then, will drinking fountains be available? What if students become ill? There's some things that parents are questioning right now, and I think these documents will help answer some of those questions.
Can you comment, Mr. Corrales, on the questions that were posed earlier on the protocol if a case is positive?
Okay, I can, and Mr. Stifter and Mr. Docking.
That is addressed really nice in our plan that
Yeah.
Dan's gonna roll out,
Yeah.
so if we do
I'll
wanna
make sure
wait.
to address that.
I have a question on, number 4 here on our, you were just talking about the mask policy, Paul. And I see we quoted the governor's
Right,
28-81.
the guidelines.
And so number 4 says exceptions or alternatives, but I think the verbiage right from Minnesota Department of Health is exemptions, I don't think it says.
That's all spelled out in the plan and at the
Okay.
very end.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we have a form, that some kids aren't going to be able to, right?
Right.
Either or.
But let me just state this, and we've talked about this a lot of times. It's one of those HIPAA things too.
Yeah, no,
You gotta be careful with that.
right, I'm asking, what I'm getting at is, do we have a form that somebody would have to fill out?
So I think that what it says is that it would come from a medical staff
Medical-
provider, right?
Correct, I'm asking if we have a form that, like these forms here that I can share with everybody, if you wanna see one. Paul, if you'd like to see one.
It identifies that there is a medical, need.
Correct, but I mean, it identifies the individual, parent signature, and then the professional's, signature and reason why, yes, they can wear a face shield, or no, they can't, or, medical signature authority, blah, 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 all this stuff, documentation, and then it has room for the principal to have that in that, so I'm just thinking, do we have something other than just a doctor's note on a?
I'd say we don't, but that's the first I've seen of these. We've been given a lot of information, but I haven't seen one of these before.
Yeah,
So I think it's really good to consider.
Yeah.
And we'll work with parents and kids.
No, I just think,
I understand that, but this is a
Yeah.
form.
Right.
that you can put in the file and,
And I think we could, did you get that from Jesse?
yeah.
Yeah, so I think we just see what we could get if we,
But
get
this
it
is
in
the
the format.
third, this is the third school I've talked to that has one.
Sure, I
And
think
this
it's,
is, from what I gathered from the state, from Minnesota Department of Education, is that we should have something
absolutely.
out there. And MDH is also saying, hey, you should have something. Not only on that, on the flip side of it is if we know that, there's certain people, that can't wear them for, special needs, special ed. We've gotta have something that protects them from also being, bullied on the other side of things.
Right.
And so that way, our staff, all the teachers are in the know that, hey, this person is exempt from wearing one by X, Y, and Z. They're all in the know, so if anything happens that way, there's no issue that arises from it, so that's.
Yeah,
that's-
that gets put together for me, I'll be honest.
Yeah, right.
We haven't, I don't come across one, came across one, not so much for mass, but for staff members who have things going on.
Right.
But
No, I think it's,
I'd be
I'm not
very
saying
careful.
just, and it doesn't necessarily have to be just
Some kind of
students,
sense.
it can be all of our staff or, anybody in the school,
Good.
That's a nice simple layout.
Thank you.
It's not too complicated.
So I have a couple of questions also. Will we have the ability with the new online pay to pay for like the MAC insurance?
Yep.
Okay. And then can you talk a little bit more about the weighted grades? I didn't necessarily catch that, Mr. Corrales, in our packet, so that kind of caught me a little bit off guard. I apologize for that.
A year ago, 2 years ago, there was the policy, correct me if I'm wrong, Mary, 620. The weighted scale in there was not exactly the same as what's in campus. Campus is correct, so our grades were right. All we wanted to do was make sure they matched.
Sure.
So if you have a college class, you still have the opportunity to have the double weight system?
Yes,
So nothing's changing,
not at this point.
okay, from practice?
Correct.
Any other questions?
Yes, I do have one here. It's kind of something that jumps out at me, and maybe it's because I'm a little more patriotic or whatever than some. Pledge of Allegiance will be led, let's see, it says in here something about at least once a week.
The student council comes in and the kids get on the PA system and they can do it they can do it 3 times, they can do it as many times as they want.
So we as a school district, I'm sorry, I'm going back to the back in the day type discussion, and I just lost it here on this page. So I'll just, back in the day, we said the Pledge of Allegiance as a part of our
Start the school day.
Opening day.
start the school day every day, because it was a teaching and a respect for the country and people that formed it for us and that type of thing. And I guess I'm a little bit disappointed that that practice isn't there to promote recognition and respect of history and the whole package. Any comments?
We can always push that up to more than one time a week, you know, it's been.
It's still done every day at Rippleside
Yeah.
too.
Why don't we do it every day? I mean, unless there's some objection, let's talk about it, but
So the pledge is done every day at Rippleside, but the national anthem is only played on Mondays, correct? Yeah, so once a week the national anthem is played, but all of the days at Rippleside,
Have the pledge of allegiance.
the pledges.
And we do it to start our day with our morning announcements.
And I'm okay with that, student council can be involved with that,
Sure.
I don't have a problem with that.
I think we need to have different kids,
Yeah.
even if they're not student councils. you know,
Anybody.
Members
Different
necessarily.
groups could come in and do it too, that would be wonderful.
I agree.
And I did note here, like I say, I touched something and I went to a different page. But, I did happen to note that, you know, if somebody feels that they're objecting to it and all this stuff, that, you know, they're not gonna be banished because they didn't participate. That's respecting personal beliefs, and that's fine. But I think we as a education facility should promote.
Patriotism,
Exactly.
I agree.
And the MSBA policy says you have to have it that we say at least once a week, so anything above and beyond that meets what
We
the
can go beyond
MSBA
that.
policy says. Huh?
We
You
can
go
beyond
beyond.
We can, I said, it says we have to have it at least once a week.
You're mumbling.
We have to have it at least once a week.
Ms. Johnson, did your question get answered from earlier today?
We're still coming to the,
We haven't got there yet.
Okay.
That's coming in the next.
we're not there yet.
Okay, all right.
Patience.
All right, next we're on to administrative reports, board member reports. Anyone have anything to report? Committee reports, policy committee meeting?
Just I was going the last one.
I did attend the policy committee meeting. We made it through the 500s and cheered because that was a big group, right? So those policies were included. What did you say?
I was only a day late for the meeting.
Now it's short too.
So, yeah, so it's just, finishing up reviewing the 500 policies. This will be the first reading of them. Yeah, they're just, basically it was wording updates as recommended by MSBA on a couple of them, so nothing major.
Okay. Financing facilities committee meeting?
I'm sorry, I have a question. Regarding policy 103 and some revisions that have been made on that.
Yep.
I think it looks very good, but I'm just confused on a couple things that I wanted to ask. I think those are some nice improvements that were made to that. Paragraph 1.
Under general statement of policy.
Yeah, general statement of policy. It says, and I misread this earlier, but if a specific complaint procedure is provided within any other policy of the school district, the specific procedure shall be followed in reference to such a complaint. And then it goes on to say, is there an example of that anywhere?
So like a grievance procedure
Is
would
that what
have
it
its
is?
own, a complaint, like a discriminatory complaint to the Department of Education or the Department of Human Rights
That
would
they
have their
follow
own.
different procedures.
Yeah, and so that's,
Got
yeah.
it, okay. And then it says if a specific complaint procedure is not provided, the purpose of this policy is to provide a procedure that may be used. And I would like to say it will be used. I mean, if we're gonna draft a policy here and follow it, because it's in the best interest of protecting the integrity of the process, then let's commit to using it. It's not a may, it's an if.
You want a shall, you'd like it.
Will.
maybe Change
may to
shall
will.
be used or something.
Yeah, usually shall.
Shall or will or whatever, that's fine. So that was one of them. If anybody has any different thoughts about that, please.
So just looking at the procedures that shall be used? Is what we're looking at there?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, unless this was changed. General statement of policy, item A. Students, parents, employees, or other persons may report concerns or complaints to the school district. And then it goes on to say complaints should be made directly to school supervisors, i.e. superintendent, principals, or AD, and must be documented, dated, blah, blah, blah. There's a area in here where it says, do we have any type of a form? If we're gonna ask people to fill out a complaint, do we have a form that we can give them to do it, if they want to?
Well, it says it right here, it says can be made orally.
Correct, I understand that.
But
And
then
that's
once it's made orally, then whoever receives it then usually
Then we-
documents it on
So I'm
the
saying,
complaint
but-
form.
but-
And that form was drafted part of this.
Was it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't see it here,
No.
but there was a form that was drafted part of this.
I'm just saying. if
That was
somebody
for
wanted-
wherever it was if it was at the elementary school or the high school or wherever
Yeah.
it was, then it could be documented where it was and time taken by who, whatever it might be.
Once the complaint is taken, it's then gonna be recorded, so there is documentation of it. My question is, if we're gonna allow people to come in and make a complaint, they may wanna make it orally, but they may wanna fill it out too. And we should have a form to be able to give them.
I'll get the form and add it to this.
Yeah, then you would just add it, like
Yeah.
where to locate it or whatever at the
Sure.
bottom.
I think that's all I have, but well done, I think.
Okay, any other questions or discussion on any of the policies? They're first readings, so there's no motion at this point. Facilities and Finance Committee?
That was a few meetings ago, wasn't it?
It's August,
6th.
Oh, was it?
yeah. Yeah, there's, enlarge this so I can see it, but not too much so I can keep it on my screen. Basically talked a little bit about, kitchen panel, electric panel in high school kitchens being, replaced. We talked about this in other committee meetings, but maybe last board meeting. It's a panel that's obsolete, we can't find, can't get breakers or replacement parts, that's being redone or replaced. Children's Center, we talked about again, it is remodeling and we're trying to find a second bid, nobody willing to bid on it, and at this point, during the summer, we decided we're just gonna kinda hold off and see what this fall brings us. We did have a bid to basically add a room, split the Children's Center, kind of add a classroom in that same space. Came in just under $20,000. We just didn't do it this summer with everything else. not sure what the fall, what's gonna bring us. If we ever get back to something that looks somewhat normal, or maybe next summer we'll look. It is a low enough, being it's under $20,000, you know, we don't need separate bids or just that. Let's get an idea if we're in the ballpark here. And we've done some carpeting, replaced carpet in a couple of classrooms at the elementary. We discussed some facilities as far as tennis courts was one that came up talking about some cracks that appeared there. The tennis court was patched and repaired 2 years ago. And we're just looking at really seeing if there's a different process to go in place. You know, it was basically $11,000 project 2 years ago, and some of the cracks are reappearing. And so, you know,
What's the base, when was the last time, when it was,
2 years
what
ago.
is the base underneath the blacktop? Has that been addressed?
that-
That's a key to any road
Right,
or anything else.
I think that's our, without knowing a whole lot about it, I would say that's our problem. It's what's underneath
Yeah.
It's what's underneath the surface is deteriorating or whatever, and that's what's causing the surface.
Something to look at when it gets to the point where it fully needs resurfaced again.
And how long ago was it?
2 years ago.
Two years ago?
We are using some of our CARES Act funding, the technology aspect, this came up, to get iPads for K through 5, and then we're gonna use MacBook Pros for 6th grade elementary. The iPads won't be here until the week of September 17th. So I put a little added, just in case there wasn't enough going on, added challenge, getting everybody hooked up and but we will have iPads, just they're not gonna be here. The goal was to have them to give out as part of this entrance conferencing, and unless something crazy happens in our favor, which would be nice at some point, they won't be here at that time, so. Secure entry, if you came in the northwest entry, that's a work in progress. The doors, they put doors on today. Originally they told me that once the door frames came in, they could have it wrapped up in a couple of weeks. The door frames came in and then nothing was happening, and I asked what's going on. They said, well, they got the door frames but no doors. They're not sure when they can get the steel doors, so they did put wood doors on today. Want to know what to sit down and express this frustration? Yes, I did that day, but you know, it's just a matter of the supply chain. My understanding, anybody doing any remodeling commercially is having some of the same challenges. So, yeah, that's basically the finance and facilities committee. So, any questions?
And the personnel committee meeting is actually July 29th, not August 29th. Do you want to give that update too?
Yep. Yeah, I can, we discussed the dance coaching position, and it was approved tonight. Alex presented his AD evaluation and the stuff he shared with us with the board, and he talked about tonight. And that was basically the gist of that personnel committee. Talked about some of the old business, some of the hires and so on, but that had already gone through. So, any questions on that?
Okay, student withdrawals and remote learning numbers.
All right. The form that was on on the board book was as of last Thursday. Andy and Paul, I think you have some updated numbers as of today.
As of today at 4 o'clock, we had 34 kids that signed up for remote learning.
And we're at 41 at Rippleside.
34 and 41.
All across the board, grade wise?
Yep.
Yep.
Probably about 8%.
Right now, we're about close to it.
How many families then? Is there 6 in family or 1 in each? Or
It varies, you know, we got a couple where there's 2 or 3 in a family. Otherwise it's some singles, and you know, we've had some that actually, I know Sherry and Cassie both have talked a lot of families out of homeschooling, because there was some confusion that homeschooling was the same as distance learning or remote learning. So our 2 office ladies done a nice job of kind of explaining the differences and the benefits of staying with us, and doing remote learning. So that's been a big plus, but.
Well, the biggest difference is the curriculum, right? And so when you're doing distance learning, the school is providing the curriculum. When you're homeschooling, you're responsible for coming up with your own curriculum, and that's
Correct,
provided by
and
the
they're getting
state,
formal
right?
education from our staff still,
Yeah.
so.
What, is there
We don't
any,
get funded.
yeah,
We lose that funding for homeschooling.
right.
We wanna keep the kids in remote learning or part of our programs so that we can keep the financial resources coming in, but we can also work with those kids in a way.
That percent, or the numbers, the 41, is that just, this is, you don't know of any that are homeschooling?
We have 12 families at Rippleside that, or maybe, I think it's at Rippleside, 12 families that have elected homeschooling as well.
That's not part of the 41?
Correct.
That's not part of it?
Correct.
Maybe if you have on that, so it's-
And those are a couple families, I think those are really like three or four families that just have,
Right,
you
so
know,
you said
3 or
12,
4.
12 families, there's 12 kids.
That's 12 kids.
Correct.
Yeah.
So remote learning is, we still get funding.
Yes, we do.
Yep.
Okay, I just want that to
You
be
get
clear.
ADMs from remote learning.
Yep.
But homeschooling is,
No.
it's
Once
not.
they declare to homeschool, they have to go to the district office, fill the paperwork out. Then once the materials are given to that parent is in charge of that student's education from that point on.
12 families,
He's
12
got
kids.
12 kids.
Yeah,
Okay.
and some of them have homeschooled before.
Oh, gotcha.
So there's not, I don't think there's 12 new kids, I believe there's 12 kids total. Where there might have been, I think there might be like 8 new kids.
So, so the 34 and 41 that you said, those are choosing something other than face-to-face in the building.
They're
But
learning
we
through
aren't
this.
losing those kids.
Correct.
They're
Yep.
still gonna be our kids.
Yep.
Oh, thank you. So really what you're saying is, at this point in time, it appears about 8 kids are going, 8 additional kids will be homeschooling that we're
Yes.
not gonna get funding for.
Yes.
Or we're not
12
going to
in the
have.
elementary building.
12 kids total.
In
Yeah.
the elementary building,
Any high school has?
not at this point, not that I know of. I
Okay.
haven't got no new ones.
Okay.
And there was some families that were electing to homeschool, and then our secretaries have kind of explained the differences and talked them out of homeschooling and staying with us, so that's been a big positive as well.
There was a misconception, I think there was just some confusion over our remote learning and homeschooling. People thought it was the same thing, unless you don't know the differences. So I had a conversation with the family too, and I thought, when I said homeschool, I thought that was your distance learning or remote learning process.
3 of the homeschool kids too, I found out today, are gonna do it just for a short period of time. There's something with some help in their family, but they're saying like after a month or 2, they're gonna have plans to come back.
Okay.
So that was insightful too.
You know, over history, we've had kids homeschool. We've had, what would I say? We look at the number of kids that go away and come and they open and roll here and they homeschool and one thing or another. That's been a moving target for many years. So right now we happen to see about 8 extras as of today, but that doesn't say our grand total is going to be drastically different than what we've been dealing with for years.
I think the board also needs to know that we've had some parents come in that are originally down in the Twin Cities who have lake homes up here.
Yep.
They're gonna start their kids in school up here because they don't want them down there.
That can be a plus.
And I think we're up actually 8 kids, 8 new enrollments, so I think we've got a couple depart, but at Riverside, we're up 8 in the green right now.
What factor into the funding? What's the timing of it? When funding is?
If they open and enroll and come to our district, the funding follows that kid to where they open.
But he's wondering if there's a date cutoff.
Yeah, I wonder if
Not
there's a
really.
cutoff, or does it matter, like Andy pointed out, we've got some kids that are gonna come back to school.
It's
from
average
home.
daily membership, right, Heather? So it's daily. I mean, you're getting a certain amount each day that the kids are here.
Oh,
It's just a
okay, I got you,
prorated-
I got you.
prorated amount.
It's in the end, it's calculated.
Okay, that's a,
as of June 30th.
Two questions. One is, John, okay, them kids online, they're ours, we got to deliver food to them then too?
Being we're in person, no, right, Dan?
Right, in person, we don't need to, but in talking with Terry, it looks like if people, we've had a good turnout this summer of kids coming by the school and picking up, so if a family
So they
wants to
gotta
come in and
to
pick them
us.
up, we aren't planning on delivering them. In the, in-person model, if we go to hybrid or a, remote, then we would have to provide a delivery or pick someplace, not necessarily door to door, but we'd have to be able to provide meals, so.
And that was one thing that Cassie said to me is she's had some families call and ask if they're electing to remote learn right away, but if they would be able to pick up meals. And so Dan's saying he talked to Terry and we're gonna go ahead and honor that. So that's one of the positives. I think that was one of the reasons why people are electing to remote learn and not homeschool.
Learning, not if you're homeschooling.
But that's a
Second
pickup,
question.
not a transportation.
Second question is, I know Crosby kind of doing what we are, what's McGregor and Hill City doing?
Last night, they talked, both those guys last week, and they were on, in-person.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we didn't get influx of kids that
No,
are,
no.
okay.
like I'm thinking, but no.
Since we were talking about lunches again and deliveries and so forth, I talked with chairman of the board in a small town down by Mankato, and I also talked with my daughter in the cities. In both of those cases, the meals, unlike us, they're delivering them once a week. That family picks them up once a week, or the school makes the delivery once a week. There's none of this everyday stuff. So if we end up doing it again, I would hope that maybe we can have some brainstorming done ahead of time so that we can do this once a week or at the very most twice a week thing. It just makes sense.
Right. That's what we talked about, if we go to a hybrid model, so the kids in school on Mondays, and they want meals, maybe we give meals for Tuesday, Wednesday, to take home with them. That has to be worked out necessarily that way, and that way it solves that, getting meals to the kids.
I'd say, I think we need to
But
have
there,
a plan.
yeah, and,
So thank you.
And there is also a, we could, maybe we pick several community spots, town halls or something, where we drop meals off from such and such time. If you're signed up for a meal, stop by and pick them up, so we'll kind of
Again,
meet people halfway.
once or
if not-
twice a week,
Yeah.
not every day.
Yeah.
Anything else on that? Okay, opening plan for the school year.
Right. Yeah, and this has been an ongoing plan. I wanna backtrack a little bit, and I'll try not to get too long-winded. We had, right away early on, we met with a group of teachers. We put it out to staff, not to teachers and parents, and put it out to staff just saying, hey, if you wanna be a part of the planning team. A few people jumped at it. We recruited a few people, and from that original committee, we came up with a series of committees, or teams, I guess. We had a communication team, a wellness, social, emotional team, scheduling team, instructional needs, professional development, technology team, transportation team, food service team, health and safety training team, academic planning team. We had a lot of people involved. Some people are involved in more than one committee or work team. We had, I feel, and we had pretty good input. There's a lot of ideas, a lot of things came from this, from staff that, I'll speak for myself, I never would have come up with if I was trying to put together this plan. Some of the training opportunities and things we've done, as far as Canvas, that came out of our survey loud and clear in June with the parents, that families wanted a set format, set platform, so we chose to go with Canvas. We provided basically 6 hours of training for our teachers and paras, with tomorrow being the last 2 hours of that training. And probably the best part about that is we had staff members that felt comfortable leading that training. We didn't have to hire trainers or bring anybody else in. From what I've observed, it's been really a good process for our staff, teachers training teachers type program, and hopefully that'll that'll alleviate a lot of the concerns and challenges that parents had by saying, you know what, I have 2 kids and they have 4 different platforms they're trying to log into and figure out where, where assignments are, where things have to go. So we're hoping that streamlines it. And also, a lot of teachers were just jumping in, trying to figure that out for the first, maybe not for the first time, but using it that in depth this spring. So these committees, these teams kind of came right out of the plan that came from MDE as far as ideas and things that we had to address. And so Andy, Paul, and I, and along with some other key leaders, helped organize the groups. And when we met, we put things together, put them into our plan. And next meeting, we pulled them out and revised and added to and built on it. So if people think this plan is workable and is good, and I believe it is, there's a lot of people that get credit for it. And if you have challenges or issues with it, well, then I guess you talk to myself, Paul, and Andy, and we'll do what we can to address them. But hopefully our staff feels good about the input they've been able to have, and not everybody gets their way. I think it did take more time to get through everything than it would have had just a couple people put it together, but I think we had a better representation of what our staff really feels we can do and what we need to do. So, so the big part of it, if you're all right, any questions at this point, you want me to kind of go through it? What do you mean? Just want me to keep talking? Careful what you ask for. Well, I talked about the Canvas learning management system. The scenarios, we know the 3 scenarios. We've addressed what they will look like and what that means, what we're doing. We had special ed and 504 planning involved there. That was working with Paul Bunyan Co-op, creating those. Our scenario 2 was laid out. Again, follow all 3. I don't think I want to read it all. There's too many pages. And then the remote learning plan. We changed the distance learning to remote learning. I wanted it to reflect more of the connection between what's going on in the classes. Hopefully, hopefully we don't end up going full remote learning. But if we are able to stay with somewhat in class, the idea of remote learning is that the kids that are doing it from home will stay. They'll be active in what's going on in their daily class. That's the whole idea of remote learning. I do know in schools that have higher numbers of kids that are remote learning are creating like whole separate programs for the remote learning kids, and I feel like you lose that connectivity to the classrooms there. But if our numbers were crazy high, that the doing it the way we're setting up might not be feasible. But my concern with the way one of the reasons I like what we're doing is if a family's on remote learning for a period of time and say, you know what, we feel like whatever the issue is, Andy mentioned on homeschool, whatever the issue is that had us on remote learning, we feel comfortable coming back to school. The transition back in would be easier, or vice versa. If something comes up where a family now has to remote learn, whether maybe there's a case, they're quarantined, or a medical issue comes up, the remote learn, I believe it'll be a smoother transition than if we had them go into a whole separate Apex learning system or something like that. That's a whole separate thing.
Do the kids who distance learn have the same assignments and grading procedure as the kids that are in school?
Yes, with some flexibility. I mean, there'll be the connectivity issue, we'll have to address. We've talked about extended deadlines, time periods for getting assignments done. But yeah, with there's going to end up having to be some flexibility based on the individual needs. If a student's able to log in and participate with stuff on a regular basis with connectivity and with their devices, there's going to be less need, I think. Not that there won't be, but hopefully there'll be less need for that. If a student doesn't have the Wi-Fi and we're having to provide, or the internet connectivity, we're having to provide either on flash drives or when they're able to get to Wi-Fi, then obviously there has to be more flexibility allowed there.
Are we requiring them, if they stay at home, to be on the computer when the teacher's teaching so the teacher can see them? Like we do a lot of webinars?
Yeah, yes, if the challenge here is for families that don't have Wi-Fi.
But if they do, it should be a requirement. They're sitting, their picture's on the computer as the teacher's teaching.
Yes, if families are capable of that. We found out last spring is people thought they had really good Wi-Fi or good internet, when they have 2 or 3 kids trying to log in, then.
I know,
then they-
I'm in that area, if
Yeah,
nothing
so-
works, but I mean,
so
but if
the
it
idea
does work,
is that-
I
yeah.
would think we would expect them to be on the screen.
Ideally, we want them on.
Yeah,
The other thing we can do is videotape what we have and then post it on Canvas. They can go in and click on what they've done and actually see it. So they can do it a couple different ways.
That'll be standard procedure, that it'll be, that the teacher will tape her presentation, his presentation.
If we've got kids that need remote learning, they should have equitability in the classroom procedures and be able to see what takes place.
The idea is across the whole schools is that's what we're all going to. I mean, Canvas is the single platform of choice for the district, but that teachers are going to have the option to live stream and or record, so that kids who don't have immediate connectivity, like Paul just said, can go back and still get the instruction.
In tomorrow's Tech Tuesday, which is tomorrow, there'll be over 90 staff that will go through that presentation tomorrow just to see how that works. So, which is good.
So they can do all 3 of those things at one time.
They could.
Live stream, record it.
As of right now, that's our hopeful plan, and our tech guys have assured us that they're working, and our teacher leaders that are doing the trainings are figuring out ways to make sure that's it's capable to do that.
They may even post on YouTube by the time they're done putting everything
Right,
together.
but the live streaming,
Yep.
whatever they're teaching live will be recorded.
Yep.
I
That's the
think
plan.
recording should be a must, because I can see where, maybe it's the type of learner that I've been over the years, that even today, I sit through a seminar, and how many times would it be really neat to be able to back up and re-listen to that 30 seconds so I really got it. I think it could be just a phenomenal advantage to our kids.
We had kids last spring that were watching things 2 and 3 times just to see, what did I miss here?
I could
Something's
relate.
wrong. That's good. That's exactly what we want.
prior to the whole COVID, distance learning, we had teachers that would record their lesson and put it on Canvas, so kids who were absent, or if you're at home doing your assignment and mom or dad couldn't answer your question, you could go back and watch it. So it's really just expanding that. The expectation is that we're gonna record, teachers will be recording their lesson on, the instruction part of it, and then putting it on their, having it on their Canvas page. In the high school, we're looking, if I have 3 sections of, like geography, I would record each of my sections, so if I was remote learning and I would be assigned to my 2nd hour of geography, I could go watch that. Or I could either log in and watch that if I was doing the live stream, or I could go to that video of my specific class and say, okay, this is what was covered today during my geography class. Okay.
Okay, I have a question. In your number 2 scenario,
Yep.
it says, you got down here like custodians will be cleaning the building and the buses.
Custodians won't be cleaning the buses. If I have that in there, I gotta reword
Okay.
that. Bus drivers will be taking care of their own buses.
It says custodial staff will be
Okay. Under scenario
implementing
2
cleaning and
hybrid.
sanitizing of our school buildings and buses.
Okay, I'll have to adjust the wording
Okay.
there.
I just didn't know they're gonna have
No.
more time. Going back to my statement of quite a few months ago.
Say told you so.
I would say that like that.
All right, I'll go on. Are you under the scenario 2 hybrid model, or are you a ways down?
What page are you on,
Yeah.
Dennis?
9, 8,
Page
page
eight?
9, top of 9, that first paragraph. Page 9.
Your page numbers must be different than mine.
About 3/4 of the way through.
I'm looking for it, man.
I'll have to find that. I'm not seeing it there. But no, I know it's in there. I believe you. I just gotta change the
This-
wording.
I'm looking at this draft copy, is
Yeah.
that the one?
Draft copy, page 9.
Yeah.
I
So on
have,
page 9,
it's
that
good.
first paragraph,
5 down,
Oh,
5
we're gonna clean
cents.
and sanitize and building the buses.
Hybrid learning plan will come.
It's different on his
different on
iPad than it is
iPad.
on your computer.
Oh.
Thinks I'm lying.
I don't
Well,
think
it
you're lying,
does
I just
say-
wanna find it so I can change it.
The district's custodial staff will implement cleaning and
I see it,
sanitizing.
hybrid two, I see it.
It's the first paragraph under scenario 2.
Yep, I see it now. Thank you.
No, I just questioned.
No,
Good point.
It's a technicality, Danny.
There's a lot of technicality. We don't know nothing yet.
This is a working document that will continue.
Good thing.
Really? It's gonna work, it's just
Yeah.
gonna change.
Yeah.
Depends upon which way the wind blows.
I understand.
So where are you at, Dan?
So I have a question about the face
Face coverings.
coverings.
What page?
It's on 14 on
So,
my version, I'm not sure.
It's
where
on
it's-
page
Page
10
10,
on
just down
this
one.
computer that I'm looking at. And so it looks like there's an exception for the face shields, but it limits it to certain scenarios, one of which is students kindergarten through grade 8. Is there a reason why that was cut off at grade 8 and not, especially in light of if we're gonna be doing forms like this that say if there's a medical reason to do? I just
That's
wonder
coming
why.
from MDH.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is strictly from MDH, so that was their
It's, yeah,
recommendation.
They allowed it from kindergarten to grade 8 for shields in those circumstances. So then, 9-12, you know,
Very scientific, I'm sure.
9-12 would be more along the lines of that.
Going through that, okay, I was just,
Yeah, that came from guidance came from MDE and the Department of Health.
so could you maybe just double check that, I guess, cause I guess I'm not an
Well,
expert
that's
on the face coverings by any means, but I was, in my mind, I was thinking that the mask
Anybody.
or the plastic shield
Anybody.
was comparable, to be able to do that, and so if that's not the case, then I can see where our policy kinda limits that, but if it's not,
Cause staff can wear face shields, right?
Face shields when it's conducive to teaching or instruction.
you need
Well,
to
they're
see their
teaching
lips or
speech or
whatever.
something like
Like
that.
especially
Understood.
my younger grade level teachers are mostly gonna wear face shields because, you know, kids, I mean, we're watching it.
Which I agree
Lip
with,
movement
but
and
what I'm saying is the
enunciation
9
and
through
all that
12
kind of stuff.
students can't wear face shields based on what?
Yeah, so it almost feels like it's kind of
Yeah.
excluding, and it
They're
makes,
saying that they want them to have a reason to have to wear a face shield.
Right.
yeah, and I think that that's fine. I mean, I think it can be kind of
But that
stated
was
as the
what this
masks
would
are
be.
the primary, and then, if it doesn't work, then to be able to do that, it just, in my mind, I thought that they were like,
Discriminating.
that they were comparable. And then, obviously, it also includes all visitors, right? So that means all of us in this room then would need to be wearing masks also, correct, under this policy?
Yes, except if we're looking at this as a specific meeting there's an exception for the public.
It doesn't say that in here, Mr. Stifter.
I'm looking at MDH's site right now and it's just K through 8 is
Okay.
what MDH is saying.
I guess I'm looking at this as our student plan.
But we are in the school building, we are subject to the governor's orders, and I think that we are subject to wearing the face masks. I think that there's an exception if you're the one presenting. But I don't know that that we are right now legal under the law. And I just need
Under
to
the
say that,
mandate, let's
that I'm
clarify
concerned
that.
about that.
I believe if you read it, we are,
Mandated law.
we're able to do, once we.
You could be
find
cited
our site.
for not having it. It's against the law.
Cite me.
You can be,
Go
I'm
ahead.
just telling you guys, I'm a prosecutor, I know it's in my handbook.
I'm more than happy.
I think we need to get to the point where we love our students and our ISD1 more than we hate the
I
governor.
love them more than you do.
More than we hate the governor.
I will,
We could
This isn't
argue
a-
this all night,
Come
Cindy,
on.
and it's
No,
not the
I'm not,
place.
what I'm
It's
saying
not the
is
place to
it's
do it.
not a political issue, I'm just saying, under
No,
this
not at all.
policy right
Hasn't been
now,
since the beginning.
we would be required to do it, so I'm just gonna address the elephant in the room.
Unless you can't wear one.
Then we probably should have a form. Because I'm not really sure how we're gonna be able to enforce this when we're representing and being role models for everyone else, including the staff, the visitors, guests, and the students.
But don't say role models. You may think that. You may think that. And that's the stance you take. But we could argue this all night long, on both sides of this. So don't act like the people that aren't wearing them don't have beliefs too.
I'm not, I'm simply saying, under this policy, we would all be required to be wearing one in those rooms. And as the board chair, it puts me in an uncomfortable situation, cause I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do to address this.
I will check again with MSBA. Initially, the MSBA came out and said that face coverings were required during meetings, and then they had some clarification on that as far as the meetings. I believe it was to board members or people presenting at meetings were to wear masks to and from. But once the meeting started, then maybe I got to get better clarification there. My understanding is once the meeting started, for presentation purposes, masks weren't required. So I will.
We're not 6 feet apart though, Mr. Stifter. We're not.
So is this a policy, Cindy, or is this a plan?
Because right now, the hypocrisy of it is, our kids can walk into the gym to practice basketball with a mask on, put their basketball shoes on and post somebody up, sweating all over each other, and when the practice is over, put their street shoes on, put their face mask on, and walk back out the door. The hypocrisy of all of this is it's just like this. We're supposed to walk in the building with a face mask on when we get to this meeting because we're social distance, we can take it off.
I don't
where
believe
the
we can
people
take it
are.
off.
What if I
I don't believe we can take it off.
What if I create a protest statement right now?
That's,
Then I don't have to wear a mask.
Okay.
I'm free not to wear a mask if I wanna protest or riot, but by God, when we're dealing with this,
I guess my goal with the whole process of putting this together was not to get into the political.
It's always been no from the
It-
beginning.
I get
it's
it,
just
I get it.
arbitrary. It's just-
I get it, but I don't have,
As
I've
far
not
as
seen it.
tonight's meeting is concerned, we had a directive on an email that was, I believe, reposted by you, Dan, from the MBE, that said we needed to wear it coming into the meeting and then we were free to take it off. And that's why it's here.
and that was the.
And
was it
that's
from
what the
MSBA?
directive was that I used when I came to the meeting tonight. If it needs to be changed in the future, I'm sure we'll get the updates from MBE, the governor's office, Department of Health, and whoever else, and Dan will pass it on to us.
So
But
should-
for tonight, what was written is what we're doing.
So I'm just questioning, how does this policy apply to
Not a
all of us?
policy, Cindy, it's a plan.
This is our.
How
Doesn't
does
say
this
policy.
plan
Doesn't
apply
say
to all of
policy,
us?
right?
How does it apply to us, Mr. Haskamp?
It's a
Should we
plan.
add a line in here that says that the school board is exempt?
We can if you want.
I don't want to, but
Okay.
you certainly can.
The plan that we have presented was our plan to reopen our school for our students. I wasn't trying to address any policy or procedures for the school board. I feel that can be a separate topic. Putting this plan together was done, I think, fairly meticulously to avoid coming down on one political side or on one side of the debate or the other. We're putting in the plan based on the guidance as best we can and trying to do the accommodations protocols as we can to meet those guidelines. I'm looking at this as a plan for when we have in regards to students, we have students in the building, to do what we can to protect our students and our teachers. I'm really hesitant to start adding things in here regarding the school board meeting or other outside meetings beyond the school day. I agree it would make it, and I shared with the board with Dennis today, would make it easier for everybody if we'd have the mask coming in and follow the protocol there. I don't know what my leverage is to enforce that. Nor do I think I've been designated as a person to enforce that. I don't believe I have. the question with, students coming in and not, and refusing to wear masks. The guidance received from MDE is we would treat it as a clothing violation. We've been telling kids since we've had handbooks that there's certain things you can and can't wear in school. In this case, this is
Dress code violation.
a mandate or a law or whatever you want to call it. Part of the plan for us to reopen is we have to have something in place saying that we're going to wear masks, and if you can't wear a mask, we'll accommodate with a shield. We have that in place. I like the idea of the checklist or the request, so we can do better. It makes sense to track that, and so everybody knows, get people on the same page. I've been asked many times, and I've been told, and throughout the summer, even last spring, what do we got to do to open school? One of the things we got to do to be allowed to open school is wear face masks. It's an inconvenience for most. It may be more than that for some others, and that's why we're allowing some exceptions to face shields and whatever we need. If it's a learning deal, a learning challenge, or teachers will be allowed to wear shields. Kids will be allowed to wear shields. We can't just say we're not wearing masks, and I can't say everybody has to, because there are going to be those conditions where we're according to the guidance that we have, where we have to allow things for that. It's going to take patience, it's going to take understanding, and if it becomes a political thing, the whole thing's going to sink. So I challenge the board, I challenge my staff, I challenge the community. Let's figure out the plan the best we can do so we can stay open, so that we can have students in our building and for as long as we can. And I hope we're able to sit here in May figuring out what graduation is going to look like after we've been in person with most of our students all year long. So, sorry for the.
Is it possible to have these board meetings then back in the auditorium where there's more opportunity
Yes, we can.
distance?
Yeah, or we can spread out in here too if we want to expand this, but if we have, it's just, I felt it's a better setting to have it in here. It's hard sometimes here in the auditorium, but yeah, I think maybe we move back into the auditorium, and that way we can have the better capability of social distancing.
A comment of support for what you just said, Dan, is Paul made a comment a couple minutes ago that this and other things we've been looking at tonight in regards to this is a working document, and it's a moving document. We listen to the news, we listen to the reports, we listen to this one or that one or the other one, and the recommendations change sometimes daily or more often than that. We need to be flexible, we need to work with it. We need to move with it as we are directed. Today, this is where we are. Tomorrow, we might be somewhere else. So what Dan said is spot on, and I just wanted to say that this is a working document, and it's a moving document, and I'm doing my doggonedest to be flexible and keep my personal beliefs
Here's my hope.
in the middle. So, I mean, that's where I'm at. I'm trying to put closure to this.
My hope is that, especially Paul and Andy and Dan, as you start to prepare teachers and staff and everybody for kids to come back, is we have to go the extra mile, not to instill fear. I will not stand by quietly if there's any sense that we're going to instill fear in children about what's going on. What's happening to kids right now is
1 in 4.
My God.
1 in 4, Joe.
Tragic.
That
They're the least susceptible, the least vulnerable,
I
and
think
yet
we just decided that we weren't going to make this political, and I think for those
Cindy,
students who
I'm
make
saying-
it political.
It's facts.
I'm saying
It's not fact.
it is a fact. I will not participate in having fear instilled, and I don't believe these are principals and maybe all of our teachers. I want to believe in their genuine willingness to get kids back in front of them and teach them and embrace them. But we have to be so careful. And it's going to be other kids too, you know. Well, that guy doesn't have a mask on, and all the discrimination stuff that starts to happen. I don't want it to happen. We owe it to our kids and we owe it to our families to make sure that it doesn't.
So I think the question that we had earlier from Ms. Johnson is what's the protocol in case there is a positive test? So I think that the plan kind of identifies some of that, but it doesn't necessarily say how or what can we communicate that.
Right, and I just lost my plan, but,
Will this be released like live on Facebook or somewhere so the rest of the public can see it to make their decision?
We wanna see this
Tomorrow.
posted tomorrow morning.
my, yes, I wanted to present to the board first. I didn't wanna release it and then have changes or things we need to change, so my goal is after tonight, if there are changes, you know, and it's pointed out a couple already, that, we'll make changes and release it through Facebook, through our website. However, they have paper copies available. I gotta add a table of contents, a couple other things, but yes, my goal is to get it out tomorrow once we get it approved by the board.
So will something like this be part of that?
I think, yes, I think it could be.
I mean, obviously, not that letterhead or
Right.
something, but.
I think it's just pulled with letterhead on it.
Yeah, I'll
Just a matter of changing it.
Yeah, no, I think it's the document came from somewhere and you could just slap your letterhead
Right.
on it.
Right.
yeah.
The question I have one question on truancy works. Your kid is gone from school for 10 days or 14 days. Can they continue to distance learn while they're forced to stay home for 10 days? Obviously, you know.
If they're forced to quarantine and those things, we basically been told truancy's
Out of the picture.
out the window. You know, but if they're asked to quarantine for 10 days and then they become positive for 14, I mean, so they're gone for 24 days. Like, if they're remote, they'll be remote learning at that point. It's just like they're in their seats.
We also gotta look at it this way, and I think we owe it to her. She sat here a long time to get her answer on the questions that she has. But I think as a family, if we have 3 kids in a family and one comes home and he all of a sudden tests positive, the whole family's quarantining, including the parents at that point in time. So we may have 3 kids that are gone for 10 days or 14 days and then so on and so forth. So we've gotta be able to work with the families. We gotta make sure that they understand that we'll do everything in our power to help them.
Dan, do you
Can I
want?
make a comment?
Yes.
I think your truancy and all that is out the window because you've already determined that children are gonna have the choice of a in-person or at-home model. If they get here and decide in-person is not what they're gonna do, they're gonna go home and do it. And if they're at home and do it and they can't do it, they're gonna come back to school. You've already opened that up, so that's a moot point. My question earlier was, if we get everybody back into school, which half of me says yay and the other half is still questionable, you come down to the positive case, how are you as a school notifying the rest of the parents involved in this
So,
that there is a positive case in your school and then allowing them to make the decision where to take their child?
right.
This
yeah.
gentleman, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, explained some of it, that it kind of becomes out of your hands. But at that point, whoever comes in to do that investigation is bringing it down to a small group saying, I have this child and I'm gonna get a hold of their contacts. But how are you, it's just like the elementary sending home letters when somebody came and had headlights. How are you letting the rest of the parents in the school know, yes, we've had a positive case test here, and allowing them to make a decision what's best for their child?
I think that's an excellent point and one that hasn't been addressed.
So, in visiting with, Aiken County Health, we have, basically we have there's a lot of stuff to answer in that question. So we have somebody that's experienced symptoms without even knowing anything. We're gonna ask, we're gonna send kids home, staff home, any of the symptoms. Last spring and throughout part of the summer, the temp of 100.6 was thought to be a good indication. Well, that's just another indicator. So if you have, we're gonna provide information to parents for families, ask parents and families to self-monitor. Our staff are gonna be given the same information to help us monitor if we have kids that are experiencing any of these symptoms. Working with our nurse, we have to have a quarantine room. I don't know if that's the right name for it, a spare room in each building, that if a student does have these symptoms, that's where they'll go until a parent can come and get them to bring them home and pursue, or maybe it is just a cold, but we need to get them home until those symptoms are cleared. we do have, if we do end up with a confirmed case, our classes are gonna have seating charts, we're gonna have spaced out as much as we can. Many of the other, furniture items in classrooms are gonna be taken out, so we can use for spacing. The guidelines from Minnesota Department of Health is 15 minutes of contact with the confirmed case. So if you're working within 6 feet, within that social distance they would consider with a mask or not. If you have more than 15 minutes of contact with the confirmed case, then you would be quarantined because of your exposure. You'd be quarantined for up to 14 days. If you have the case and you're based on your symptoms start, it's a minimum of 10 days where you'd be out during that quarantine time, or if you have the case, if you're not too sick, you'll have the remote learning opportunities available so you can stay on track. And that's another reason why I like the fact that we're going to try to do our remote learning in conjunction with our regular classes, so that if my son gets quarantined because he's exposed somebody at school, he can stay caught up while he's quarantined with his class. And when his quarantine time is done, there's still going to be an adjustment. There's some things he maybe has to do that he wasn't able to do at home, but he'll be able to jump right back into that class.
Can
As
they
far
go
as
back and forth then? If they chose to? I mean, could they go 2 weeks of in class and?
we're
I
gonna,
think there's an expectation that they have those conversations with the principals, if I'm not mistaken.
we're gonna try to do it
Parents are,
on try to do it on a monthly basis with exceptions. The jumping back and we don't want students getting up Monday morning and talking to
Right.
mom and just saying, hey, or dad, or whoever, I want to remote learn today. And then go back to school. But, so if they're, but at the same time, I want to be flexible, so if a concern does come up, maybe mom or dad might have been exposed at work, they don't, we want to work with that type of deal too. So I think flexibility is going to be the name of the game, but if you have change within, let's say we do on the first of the month, if you're going to change plans, we want you to meet with the building principal or contact the building principal and say, hey, this is what's going on. This is why I feel I need to make the change. Maybe it's a student who wants to start out here and decide, I'm not comfortable with everything going on. I'm still concerned, and I feel distance or remote learning would be a better plan, or vice versa. So I'll have that flexibility kind of built in, but also have some guidelines, so we're just not jumping from day to day or week to week without really any medical reason.
Will we be following the contact tracing that the state is going to be doing?
So-
Is there something that public health will be doing?
Right.
Or how are we going to notify people
So-
who are
It says
in
right here, it says right
exposed?
here in this, but this isn't sent out yet, but it says methods of communication will be, I think this is what your question is, Infinite Campus, text message or emails to the Infinite Campus.
Dan,
I guess.
we continue to explain the process.
Yeah.
So after the 10 and 14 days, basically Aiken County Health and MDH take over and contacting.
They do the tracing.
So what we have to do, and this is in visiting with Aaron today, I'll try to shorten up so I can get there. We have to do the initial contact tracing, so our staff will have, we're asking staff to have seating charts and keep track, so student A in my classes within that 15 minutes within that social distance, we know which students that is, and we contact them and have them go into quarantine or request quarantine and put them into remote learning. Aiken County Health will be working with us to follow up with that. I found out today from Aiken County Health, they've had some people do quarantine. No one, the Minnesota Department of Health gets done with their investigation, they'll say, no, you know what we found out, they no longer need to be in quarantine. So when it comes down to it, the final say will come out of the Department of Health. But it's up to us and then the county health to do the preliminary, department. If it happens tomorrow in school, we don't wait until the Department of Health gets back to us and say, these are the kids that have contact. So they're the ones that have to remain home or quarantine. We do that. We determine which kids who may have been exposed in school, share that information. Well, Erin Mills with the Department of Health said she'd work with us on that. They'll have that information. They'll take it to the next level. So then the state makes the final official determination if they need to be quarantined or not. We could have students that are out for a few days because we think they're quarantined or need to be, and the Department of Health comes back and says, no, you know what, they don't need to be. Or I hope it happens that way, not that we miss somebody, that they come back and say this person should have been, so. That's the process. I don't know if that answers your question, you've been waiting for 2 hours.
Sort of, it still doesn't say,
Am I gonna get a text message to find out that my child has been exposed, right?
pretty much.
You-
That's what I
From
wanna know
somebody you
too.
will.
Somebody will, yes.
You'll get a message notification of some
That's
sort.
what it says right here.
Yep.
You'll
Okay.
read page 13, top of it.
I think the hard part is the person that I know in my family that was tested on a Thursday, didn't get the results back until Monday. And what do you do during that time frame? I mean, that was the struggle that my family went through.
You
Because there's so much
quarantine
time,
time,
right, so you're
Quarantine.
quarantining, but yet there's not notice, right?
But how do you know you're supposed to quarantine?
We'll send out, I mean, if it's
When
a
you're
student's
tested,
class,
the
I guess
clinic
I'm gonna send
tells
out
you.
some information saying, you know, we had a, you know, suspected or confirmed case. There's gonna be communication. I don't know exactly to a T what that looks like. I think it's a case by case scenario.
I think there'll be a phone call if those kids are impacted, it depends on, directly impacted, that you need that 15 minutes of direct contact within that 6 feet social distance.
There's a flow chart to follow, and so, but no matter what, you're gonna get a phone call.
Indicating that your child has been subject to a COVID-19 case or
Potential
something
exposure.
like that.
So,
And will you be
Yep.
sending out any information to the parents as to how this is all gonna look like, or what this is all gonna look like before school starts?
Yes.
Do you have anything
Our
else?
goal is tomorrow.
This whole
So-
town.
Yeah,
So
we're
when,
hoping tomorrow, that it'll be published tomorrow.
when the flu season starts,
Well, it's kind of the same
hang
thing.
on.
We get a notification, or at least I used to when we were in McGregor. When 2 or more children were out with the flu, you got a notice right away. Kids have been exposed to the flu.
And
You
our
make your
our
choice.
nurses do those things here as well.
You make
I
your
mean,
choice what you're gonna do with your child, whether you keep them home or let them go to school. This is maybe the next level of extremity a little bit.
And I
So-
think that that's also the strength of our plan, is that
Okay.
with the remote learning opportunity, you're gonna have that option as a parent, you know, and I think it just makes that transition smoother than we've ever had in the past, because remote learning hasn't been necessarily an option.
And that was my next question then, is if we feel or we hear of a case, parents need to contact you as well as you us. At that point, it's our choice then to keep the child at home and not come back.
100%.
That's what I'm hearing.
100%.
That's correct.
Wait a minute. Say that again.
So I'm gonna give you, my child is in school and comes home and knows that someone else went home sick.
Oh.
I get the notice before you do. I should probably then tell you, hey, I heard this. So you can do whatever you need to do, but then it's still my choice to keep my child at home and not come back until we know the all clear is given.
And that's the flexibility portion
Right,
that.
that's why I don't wanna get,
Yeah.
only change
Okay.
at quarter break or semester break. Which I know some schools are doing, but my concern would be exactly that. Maybe your child was not exposed, maybe we have an outbreak, your child wasn't directly exposed, but now you're concerned about your child coming to school, and you wanna, you know what, for that reason, I feel remote learning is the best for my child at this point. I don't wanna say, well, that's fine and dandy, but you don't get remote learning until second semester or next quarter. That's a conversation like you have with your.
But I appreciate what you said too. It's you know, we want families to communicate with us. You know, that's all we're asking. We're gonna do our best to communicate.
So I would assume that if she's gonna keep her child home next 2 days, that she would contact us then and say,
Well, and the same thing outside
I need some
of
remote
school.
learning or something.
Yep.
Same thing outside of school, if they've been somewhere and they know somebody's been ill, keep them back and let you know, or if they end up in school and we find out someone's ill. Putting that in a communication letter so that parents are encouraged to let you know as well.
Yeah, good idea.
Somehow that it's a two-way street, cause I think there's a lot of parents out there right now thinking if they send their kids to school, that you've now taken control and they don't have anything left.
Right.
And so I hear that a lot out there right now. I can't send them back. I don't wanna send them back because then I won't know what's happening. So that's a big fear.
Yep, and again, part of the reason we haven't released the plans, I wanted to have this very same discussion before I put it out there, and then have it out in the community, and then have to come back and say, well, wait, we're changing X, Y, and Z of the plan. And,
Right.
and I think that's adding more confusion. Caused confusion by not having it out sooner, caused some frustration by not having it out sooner. My hope is in the end that we cause less frustration and less problems by making sure we have as many people as we can on board from this table and people that work in the building as well, so. Did you have any other questions? You've been
No, I
more than
think
patient.
that's most of it anyway, we'll figure out the rest of the people.
Okay.
Curiosity thing,
You ever have any questions? Just feel
Oh, yeah.
if we're back in school and we're coming and going, we're passing here, we're passing there, kind of as normal.
Or call.
If we're doing it like we've all seen it, and it's kind of the traditional deal here, you know, we're not with the same group all the time. We're, you know, I'm in a class with Joe today, or first hour, I'm in a class with Denny tomorrow, second hour, Jeremy third hour, and so forth. I come up positive. Now, who hasn't been exposed? And in turn, I'm concerned, and you know, have we done any consideration or looking into trying to keep pods or groups? You might say, Mr. Bailey's classroom is Mr. Bailey's classroom, and it's Mr. Bailey's classroom. It's that group. Somebody comes up positive in there, the whole school isn't contaminated. It's just his classroom. Have we looked into that at all, or explored that?
It's gonna be easier, some of that's being done in the elementary, it's kind of the naturalness of it. Talked about it with 7th and 8th grade, trying to keep groups together more. We get to 9, 10, 9 through 12, it's a little different because of the electives and the variety of classes that are there. The thing that to keep in mind is in Department of Health is saying that 15 minutes of direct contact or contact within that 6 feet, if people are wearing masks, it's a 15-minute. We don't, the concern with the virus spreading would be only those kids that they've been in contact with for 15 minutes or people within that 6. So if I have it, you and I pass in the hall, that doesn't make you contact. Now, if you and I are working side by side on an assignment, you're copying my answers again for 15 minutes.
Well, I'd have to.
You should find somebody. Should find somebody with better answers. But no. But I mean, then and I come down. Then you know what? Now you'd be considered a person that would have to be notified that.
But they're also saying go back to the old style, traditional, everybody's facing in one direction format classrooms. I mean, those are their recommendations, because then, you know, what they're saying is like kids can take a mask break. So like us, I'm facing this way, I can actually take a mask break because I'm not intermixing, you know, whatever, contaminating, you know, cross-contaminating area. I'm here, you know.
Not singing at us.
If we're having conversations where I'm gonna be, you know, closer, yeah, a mask has to be on.
Andy, I know on Ripple side, the teacher or the classes switch. Are we gonna keep the classes in their class and the teachers switch, or is that gonna be too hard for the teachers to take their stuff?
And so that's we're not going there yet. With specialists, we are gonna allow the classrooms to go to specialists, just to try to have as minimal impact on the programming as possible.
When you say specialists, I don't mean just science and art, like this in 6th grade.
Yep, and that's honestly my staff's discussing that right now, and I've actually left that up to them. Okay. I've recommended that maybe we look at, like, so in 3rd grade, for example, Tara and Beth, so Mrs. Proctor and Mrs. Lundgren were switching.
Yep.
They may not switch anymore.
Yeah,
just to limit some of that. I mean, they're just going to be self-contained. So Tara's going to be teaching reading now, not just teaching math for 3rd grade. You know, so there is those discussions. We haven't made a formalized decision that everybody's going to be doing this across the board. Being we are in person, I think that we're allowing a little more flexibility, but we are limiting movement. I mean, we look at as far as breakfast, I can get into with my plan. Do you want me to just talk about some of it now?
Is this 52-page document gonna be sent to everybody tomorrow?
Yes, it'll be on the website.
I think I'm gonna take out there's about 20 pages of flyers or signs or whatever. I think I'm gonna pull those out of there and put those in a separate document, so it doesn't look like it's 52 pages. It's actually, it's only 26 or something like that, but yeah, tomorrow, my goal is to get this sent out to everybody and make it available.
I appreciate the work that went into the document and also to the frequently asked questions, because those are all the questions I had. Boom, I jumped on, read through those, was able to answer those. So I do appreciate all the work that went into those.
And I think that's kind of what Andy was getting at. Do we want Andy and Paul to kind of go through the individual building stuff, or do you have?
I'll just do the quick changes that we're gonna see at Rippleside this fall. So in the mornings, parent drop-offs been at the front of the school. Actually, we're gonna have buses pulled all the way up to the kindergarten door. Grades K through 3, I misworded in my document, but I was reading it again today. K through 3 is gonna go in by the kindergarten rooms there. 4, 5, 6 will use the main entrance. So parent drop-off will be down by Wookfield, just on that block. We have crossing guards and stuff there, so that should all be fine. I know it's gonna be an adjustment for the community, so we have to get that word out there. But that's the biggest thing. When kids enter the building in the morning at Rippleside, they're gonna go straight to their lockers and then straight to their classrooms. So we're not gonna have those common community times that have been happening, like where they're in the gym for 10 or 15 minutes and then, 70% of our kids are in the cafeteria intermixing. They're going straight to their classrooms to hopefully minimize some of that interaction. At that point, when their classes come in and they're full, kids that want breakfast will go down and get breakfast and come back to their rooms and eat breakfast within their classrooms. And there's kind of some hidden benefits that the staff and I have talked about, but the teachers, it's an opportunity for them to do some, social emotional learning, kind of community building activities right away in the morning. And it's, a lot of good discussions can happen too when kids are interacting, eating with each other, and so we think there's some positives there. The next change is going to be at lunch. Kids will be eating in their classrooms, unfortunately, so their classroom teacher will take them down. They'll get their lunch, it's all served and ready to go, so they literally pick up their tray if they're eating hot lunch, go back to their classrooms, eat lunch in their classrooms. Then recess is going to be a little different. One grade level at a time is going to be on the playground with individual set of playground equipment for the grade level. It is my hope to get. We're working on getting that stuff ordered right now. But 20 minutes on the playground, one grade level at a time. The grade levels are getting me time that they would like to do recess. I think the cool thing with trying this model is that if I'm teaching second grade and I think that my kids need recess at 11 o'clock in the morning, or they need it at 1:10, they start getting a little squirrely, great, we can take our recess kind of flexible throughout the day. I can take them out for 20 minutes and really be out there with them. Right now the teachers are going to be out at recess. We think there's some hidden benefits there too. Teachers get to interact with kids on a little different level and a little different element instead of just in the classroom. So there's some hidden benefits there. Dismissal is going to look a little bit different. Teachers are going to take their kids out. The kids who are getting picked up will stay in their classrooms. And I'm working on coverage. There's some talk of maybe having specialists cover the classroom where the kids are waiting to get picked up. The teachers will go out with their classrooms, they'll come back in, and then after the buses are gone, they'll take those kids out for pickup, and we'll just do normal pickup like it's been.
Because parents and visitors will not be coming into the building,
Correct. Yeah, there's, little to no visitors, unfortunately. It's going to be our younger parents that get affected first, and so those first couple of days, our early childhood, we have the double set of doors, so I'm hoping to have paras out front there, and they can meet the little ones and take them to their rooms, where parents just drop off they're not gonna be allowed in our building, unfortunately.
We're gonna have the entrance thing
Yep, so entrance conferences, and we made a little change, some of you may know, but we're going actually to 3 days of entrance conferences this year, just so we can spread it out a little more, get less people in the building at one time. But then they also, with that being, we're going to one now, we're gonna do a couple little trainings that we're gonna ask parents to go to on Canvas, basic iPad usage as well, because not all of our families have used iPads before, and so just kind of some features and tools and really how they can use it. And then we're gonna do a little session on campus as well, like 10 or 15 minutes, kind of frequently asked for campus. So, other than that, I don't think there's anything changes wise. Questions?
So if you have a kid in first grade and fifth grade, you'll drop off in 2 spots if you're dropping off?
So if you're dropping off in the morning,
Yeah.
it'll be down by Wookfield.
Okay.
Just, they can walk up the sidewalk. They're just gonna go in 2 different doors.
Got it.
Yep. Unfortunately, the first graders gotta go down to the kindergarten end, and then the 5th grader go in the main entrance, and it'll be a little bit of an adjustment. It's not ideal, but it's the task we've been given, so.
Cindy, you said complimented about frequently asked questions.
Yes.
Where do I find that?
I shared it just today, this morning, I think
Trying
you
to
sent me a
open it.
request, to access finally. I think that was what it was.
Request access. Why do I have that problem? Or is it the new program that I?
No, you gotta go to email during your meeting. During your meetings.
Here's
So there's the so the plan will be published tomorrow, as well as the frequently asked questions.
There's 3 documents there, I'll probably swing them, put them together, so it's one on the district-wide and a high school and a Ripple side frequently asked questions.
I plan on pushing out my frequently asked questions in my the opening, what is it gonna look like with my letter to parents.
I'm gonna send it out before you get your letter, so.
Mr. Corrales, will now, not only with the COVID, but with the new secure entrance, will people all be coming in the secured entrance?
Yep.
Will all the doors be open in the morning? Tell me what
They'll all
that,
be open in the morning, and then at 8:20, they all get locked, and the only way in is through the northwest doors, and that's it.
okay. So in the mornings, anyone 7 through 12 can come in any door?
Yes, and that's assuming the secure entry that I was told to be done by June 15th is done by September 8th. I mean, still, it's gonna be our secure entry, but
We were gonna have all the kids come through that door, it'd be a matter
Yeah.
of.
well, and that's part of it, that schools are talking about screening as they come in.
You wanna look at?
You're gonna bunch kids up, you're gonna put them in a group while you're trying to screen everybody, defeating the purpose of everything else we're doing. So, in the morning, the same doors that have been open in the past, I don't know if they're all open, the same doors that will be open in the past will be open until at 8:20 marks, and then everything locks up and you come in, you'll buzz in, you come in to the office area with the glass window, and Dawn or whoever else is there, depending on the time of day, will get what you need, or if you are there for an IEP meeting or whatever at the high school, they will contact the teacher, or if you're here, whoever you're here to see, if you're here to see Paul. And then that part of the secure entry plan, regardless of all this, is whoever that you were here to see, they would come and get you and take you
Where you need to
to
go.
the meeting, wherever the meeting's at. So you wouldn't have somebody walking around saying, hey, is this room 137, or where is so-and-so's classroom? Our staff will be coming down there in high school. That's kind of how it works in the elementary anyway, I believe, so.
Do we wanna bring up the idea of the K2, even if we go to a hybrid model?
Yeah.
So the idea that my teachers are asking me to push for was K1 for sure, but we're looking at having the idea, if we do have to go elementary into a hybrid model as well, keeping K through 2 5 days a week in person. We could socially distance, spread out. I have staff in the building that we would look to pull from other areas so that we could, I'm looking at maybe 3 extra sections. So 1 extra section in K, 1 extra section in first, one extra section in second grade. And then basically just moving into spaces throughout the building, but it would allow us to keep our youngest kids in person 5 days a week, even if we went to the hybrid model. You know, that's kind of been the big push, because it's, how do we teach a 5-year-old to read
That's,
from a distance?
and that process, if that works, has to kind of be fleshed out yet with the kindergarten, first, second grade staff to see if we can make that work and what does that look like, so.
So those, you know, that's what we've been asked from staff, and I love the idea. There's a fair amount of elementary schools that are trying to figure out a plan to do something like that, but we're figuring out details, and it's,
Personally, I want that, because I said right away, those youngest kids, they, I mean, even though it's on a computer, they're not gonna be learning from the teacher.
right.
So, some kind of a plan that can do that, yeah, I would,
It's critical to get
Very
the roots started right.
No doubt.
And that would, looking at numbers, that would still keep us under the 50% capacity we have to have on those hybrid days, K1, 2.
And we'd look at utilizing that, for an example. I mean, we could even make our cafeteria/gym a classroom. The media center where the current lab is, we would utilize that space. So those are just a couple other scenarios. And then being we're going 1-to-1, that lab inside the media center isn't going to be a lab anymore, because kids have 1-to-1 devices. So that would be another space for my 3 spaces. Those are the 3 spaces that come to mind quick for being able to spread out.
And if we go to hybrid here, this space right here could be used for kids that don't have technology or internet at home, to give them access so they could load throughout the days on their off day. If they're an A student and they need to get here on a B day, they could actually utilize this area to get on the internet to live stream or load Canvas or submit assignments or do anything in that line. And I'm looking at right now, maybe the commons area and the senior area, that could also be a spot for the kids to be able to social distance and still get on the internet and be involved in classroom activities.
The other thing we've talked about, if we are in a hybrid situation or a remote, would be opening our libraries maybe outside some traditional school hours for people to be able to come in if they don't have connectivity. Actually, the Methodist Church today said that they're going to be opening their doors for people that have connectivity issues. They're going to open up and be able to be there for educational support. So I thought that was cool.
Well, our parking lots, we should be able to connect out there, can we?
Yep.
One of the challenges.
And how many buses do we have that
Well, we have
wired?
5 portable units. They're not necessarily tied to a bus. They're assigned to a bus, so we wouldn't. I always thought they were part of the bus too. We'd have to run a bus out to Glentown Hall or whatever. It's actually the device.
I'm just thinking strategically
Yep.
placing
Yep.
connectivity options.
Yeah. Yeah, so that would be an option as well. I forgot what I was gonna say there. It'll come back to me.
Were you thinking that, like, I mean, you could throw it in the back of his truck and go sit at Glenn's store, and
Be
it
there
would,
from
you know,
2 to
people
4
could
or
come
something
and.
like that. Yeah.
It was kind of funny at graduation, we had a couple Fijites over at the football field thinking the radio stations could log on to those. When the kids found out they could log into them, they overloaded them right away, so.
Radio stations
It's one of those
also
things you
broadcast
can't see.
Yeah, so the kind of along with that, I've been working with Northeast Service Cooperative. I mean, working is probably an exaggeration on my part, but they're doing Steve Georgi with the Northeast, what his title officially is, trying to work with broadband in northeastern Minnesota. He sent me a link that he wants me to share with our community, that from your home Wi-Fi, they want you to click on this link, and what it does is it identifies where your Wi-Fi's at and the speed of it, and that's it. And they're collecting that data to use in a grant to identify the lack of connectivity that we have in northeast Minnesota. And if you don't have Wi-Fi, and you can get access somewhere else. He just wants you to put in your address and identify that you don't have connection, and that'll show up as well. And what they're trying to do is just pinpoint and identify, so when he goes after this grant to help with connectivity, whatever that looks like, he has data from all the Northeast Service schools. I haven't shared, I got that on Friday. I haven't shared it because I knew I wanted to send some of this stuff out. I don't want it to be confused, but I'll let the board know. I will send that out later this week. So if somebody questions you, that's all it is. It's not, I get it. It might not
It's not a scam.
It's not a scam.
They can come to my house.
Yeah. So and I did it home when I logged in and did the test. It showed me how fast or slow my internet would upload, download, and a couple other categories that mean nothing to me. But then it registers a point for them showing, okay, in this location on 34974, this is a connectivity there. So, and he's been working since he's been working on it forever, but since distance learning really kicked in. He talked about, you can go down to southern Minnesota and hang a transmitter or satellite on a fence post and cover 3 miles. You come up here and hang it 100 feet in the air in the tower, and you might go 100 yards because of trees. And just making that point known of how difficult it is for our families to be connected just because of our physical geography. So again, I'll try to explain that as best I can. I'll hopefully do better in my email that goes out to the community. But if you get calls saying, hey, what's this coming from the school? Now you know it's just an internet check that Northeast Service Cooperative and the Arrowhead Regional Consortium is trying to use to push a grant support. So.
Any other questions?
I have one other quick question, a little bit off topic if I may, and then I'll leave you alone. When or how are we distributing the computers this year?
Okay, on August 26th, during student orientation for 7th graders, they'll get theirs. That'll be all spelled out in the letter that's coming out tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And the 27th and 28th, we will do that in the afternoon for grades 8 through 12.
Okay, that's
It's all ready to go.
okay.
They're set and ready to distribute.
Anything else?
Unless somebody comes up or sees something in there, it's just.
Is
You
there
know,
a message from somebody
Thank
that
you for coming.
it also said Glory Church would be open to kids without internet as well.
Where's that, Jeremy?
Glory Church South by Glen.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And that was a point I had kind of talked about briefly one day with Mr. Stifter. If we get to a point where we do have to be isolated, there are so many other opportunities and buildings around town, right, between vacant businesses and churches or wherever, that perhaps classes could be held still together but in a different location, right? So I think that there's a lot of partners that we would have in the community, to brainstorm. So we appreciate those resources.
And last spring we did put together a list. I did a real short call list of, trying to get 4 to 5 different areas. We shared a list with the students of where they could go to get Wi-Fi, north, south, east, west, for outlying areas. But yeah, obviously we can do more with that. So.
Thank you, everyone, for your work. Upcoming meeting, Personnel Committee meeting August 26th, Board Work Session August 31st, Facilities and Finance September 3rd, Policy Committee September 9th, Board Work Session September 14th, and then the School Board meeting September 21st. Anything else?
Move to adjourn.
Motion by
Amy and
Mr.
Paul, thank you.
Haskamp, second by
A lot of work.
Mr. Jansen. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.